Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Friday, June 27, 2019. As usual, in segment 1, we will continue with the reading of the Mueller report. But for the past 2 days, there has been debate in the Democratic Party. 2 nights ago, there was panel number 1 with 10 candidates vying for the office of the presidency, trying to make their case to you, the American people. Last night, again, the second panel, also comprised of 10 individuals, tried to do the same. Now, there were a few candidates missing during those 2 nights. What happened? What transpired? What was said? Is there any hope? And of course, the context behind the Mueller report will be presented here in just a short minute. Give us just 60 seconds and we will give you the world. Once again, welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. If you've been here before, thank you for your participation. You are helping to make the journey a little bit lighter. If you've been here for the first time, welcome. The fourth branch program is not associated with any political party. The ultimate objective that we have is to perfect the union. And in order to do so, we have to remove the biggest obstacle of all, ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. There are 2 types of individuals in this world. Well, actually, there are more, but 2 types of individuals who are completely against any progress, any advancement. And if those individuals were the only ones in our society, we will still be living in the dark ages. Those people are those, obviously, who cannot change and those who will not change. You ever met any of those individuals? Well, if you think for just a moment, we call some of those people stubborn. But really, it's even worse than that. People who are stubborn can change, and more often than not will change. But the individual we're referring to are individuals who have made, well, in group 1, who have made the decision not to change no matter what. And the second group are individuals who simply cannot change. Now, we are not in any position to determine as to why those who cannot change what happened. But those who will not change, we more or less have an idea, depending on the context, of course, as to why those people decide not to change. Regardless of which category those individuals belong to, they are useless to society. They do not bring any contribution to society. Now, I can give you tons of examples of what it would mean for someone, especially those who have contributed to advancing our society, to bringing new invention, new creation, and so on. What would have happened if those individuals were in one of those two categories? Diseases would have been rampant in our society. Well, that is, if we were to still be alive, because we could have been all killed by contagious diseases. But fortunately, despite the fact that those two categories comprise really millions of individuals, but they're not necessarily in the majority, but they can cause serious havoc to society, to a nation, or to the world even. We have plenty of examples of such. When we approach the reading of the Mueller report, we will give you context, and we will touch on one certain individual as to how that has done the greatest damage to the world. So yes, individuals who have decided not to change because they believe they're right and nothing will change them, those individuals are dangerous to themselves, to their families, to their communities, and yes, to society. Now, we cannot sit here and pretend to understand why someone would be that way, because the very essence of mankind is to evolve. The other animal species do not have that kind of luxury, and yet we learn through experience that if you teach an animal, a dog, horse, even sea creatures, some sea creatures, dolphin in particular, a few tricks, they would learn it and they would keep it. So the question is, what would cause any human being to adopt a behavior that's sure to be very detrimental to himself or herself, to his or her family, to his or her community, to the country he or she says she claims to love, and yes, to the world? What would cause that? We are not in any position to answer that question because, frankly, we do not know. But one thing is certain, that behavior is a grave danger to our society. We've seen it played out in history, and once again, in the midst of the 21st century, we're seeing that playing again in our society. We know what the end result was. We know what the outcome was. History reports it. Now, you don't have to be a student of history to understand that if you decide not to change course, even in the face of proof, evidence that your action or the course that you're on is wrong, then you do not have to be a genius to figure out what the outcome would be. We saw the play out in the movie The Titanic, which the captain decides not to change course because, well, he was told many times by his crew that he was on the wrong course. He was going to hit a serious obstacle, and he decided not to. Well, yes, that was a movie, but as I mentioned, I will be presenting to you a similar example in real life, which was even more devastating than the Titanic. So yes, when we see individuals who decide, for one reason or another, whatever rationale that they have, not to change course, even when they see they clearly wrong, we have to be very mindful that danger is not too far away. Catastrophe, even disasters. What the hell am I talking about? For the past 2 years, the country, the world even, has been in a very tumultuous state. Now, even if you were to be hiding under a rock, I'm fairly certain that the rock would shake so much that you would know something is not right, let alone. The presidency of Donald Trump has created an environment which is detrimental not just to the United States of America, but to society at large. First, you have an individual who would not change course, or who cannot change course, for all that we know. No matter what, how great the danger is, no matter how many times he is told that he is in the wrong course, he's on the wrong course, as such, the country has been going through a very tumultuous time, and the world has been bracing itself for what we would call maybe the inevitable. But the question remains, why would millions of people choose not to change course despite the fact that they see the outcome of their action playing right in front of their eyes? That's the big question. Why would they not? We do not own the book of wisdom, but we also are not blind. We can clearly see the result, the outcome of actions or inaction by the President of the United States and, of course, the Republican legislative body, and what makes matter worse, even the constituent. It feels like a plague, a disease even, that had only attacked the minds in the Republican Party. it seems that there is not a single individual who was not affected, infected even. The big question still remains: why would millions of people who clearly see what everybody else is seeing witness what everybody else is witnessing, experience what everybody else is experiencing, not change course in the face of being on the wrong track? Despite the fact we are not in any position to answer that question, and we are not going to try to, but we know that the outcome is not good. We will bring the example right before the reading of the Mueller report, but suffice to say that the 2020 presidential election should be the time for those who are still able to reason, for those who are still able to understand, for those who still care or still capable of changing, to make the decision, the correct decision of helping changing the course of history. You see, in the movie The Titanic, while the captain was stubborn and would not change course, and the crew was trying everything possible to help convince him that we were heading toward disaster, there were just a handful of people who were making preparation to help rescue or avoid the accident, or help save as many as possible. But as you should note, that they could only save so many, and that's the outcome of such behavior. Disaster, tragedies will always follow. And usually those individuals who will not change, they have plenty of rationale as to why they would not change. The economy is great, Wall Street is making money, so what not to like? Before the Titanic hit the obstacle and sent everybody into panic and sank that huge ship, everything was running just fine. People were dancing, drinking, and so on. And that's the way it always happened. In fact, for those of you who believe in the Bible, for those of you who cling to the Bible, as most of those individuals who do not want to change claim to be, because Republicans are mostly those who claim to be Christian and Christian conservative, may I remind you that when God was angry with what was going on here on earth, He instructed Noah to build an ark. And at the same time that Noah was charged to do that job, but he also was going around warning people that if they did not change course, something terrible will happen. And those who are stubborn always suffer great tragedies. History is our guide. Now, for those of you who do not care much about history, but claim to believe the Bible, this is a Bible story. Noah was building an ark in order to save himself a bunch of different species as instructed by God. And while he had actually 3 specific instructions: to build the ark, to gather species, different species, male and female, and to warn everyone that God is about to unleash his wrath, his anger. Now, if you believe the Bible, you know the rest of the story. Except for those who made it to the ark, everything perished, wiped out from the face of the earth. So the question is, why would millions of people, Republicans, constituent, legislators, continue on a course that is clear is the wrong course? It was reported earlier that Donald Trump was joking with Vladimir Putin and say, do not meddle in the election, okay? It's become a joke. The erosion of our Constitution, the erosion of our democracy is now a joke by the very individual whose job is to protect the nation. Yes, the country, fellow Republican, is on the wrong course. Yes, you may have a few pennies in your pocket, which you may think or consider to be good enough. To hell with Christianity, to hell with the Bible, to hell with decency, to hell with integrity, as long as you can have a few pennies in your pocket. Yes, to you, at that point, Donald Trump seemed to be the greatest thing that has happened to the nation since sliced bread. I watched Lindsey Graham on the Senate floor making a case to impeach Bill Clinton on a matter that was, by any stretch of the imagination, a personal matter. And yet, he was so high on his horse that the presidency of the United States cannot accept those kind of behavior, that he was not, according to him, he would not lose any sleep to have Bill Clinton impeached. Today, the country has information that clearly tells everyone that that individual in the Oval Office is the greatest danger that the country has had since its existence. An individual who has exposed our national security, who has derided our allies, trampled the rule of law, shred the Constitution, and yet millions of individuals continue to be on the same path that will lead to the destruction of the nation. And yet, they okay. So to the rest of our society, those who have realized that the country is indeed on the wrong path, integrity, decency, respect, The Constitution, the rule of law, have made the United States of America the envy of the world. Something we can no longer claim to have. It is time to recognize that that individual is not worth the sacrifice of our nation. No matter what rationale, how much you can spin the event, it's impossible to argue with facts. Which makes it all the more true that millions of Republicans fall into one of the two categories that are detrimental to any society: those who cannot change and those who will not change. In other words, the United States of America, our society, cannot rely on any of those individuals to redeem our nation, to save our nation. So the 2020 presidential election is the time to remove the lever of government from the Republican Party, because legislators have failed openly to do the job for which they were elected. Republican legislators have failed to exercise oversight on the executive branch. Republican legislators have failed the Constitution of the United States. Live from New York City at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Fourth Branch presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. George Santayana said that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Well, I say it differently. Those who ignore the past will be forced to relive it. I said earlier that there are two types of individuals. Well, the correct statement is there are two types of fools in the world: those who cannot change and those who will not change. In 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. That is against the advice of many, especially those who at that time were serving under the president Hindenburg, Paul von Hindenburg. If you want the detail about that particular time in history, we had made a documentary of several video, probably 8 hours worth of video, in which we provide enough detail of the making of Adolf Hitler in context with what currently going on in the United States. Because you may recall that there a number of people have compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler, and most people, especially those who are supporters of Donald Trump, always shrug off the idea. So we thought it was appropriate to do a parallel between Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump. So Paul von Hindenburg, then president of Germany, appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. Now nobody, the president of Germany is mostly like ceremonial figure, so to speak. He does have some power, but we don't hear of the president of Germany often. For instance, today, Angela Merkel is the individual that you know of. You've seen her different function, both domestically and on the international stage. That's the person that we hear of. You never heard of the president of Germany. Well, it does exist, you know. His name is Frank Walter Steinmeier. That's that guy. He's the president of Germany. He's actually the ultimate rainmaker, if you like, deal maker, because although he doesn't really participate in any political affairs of the country, but when it comes time, he may decide to do something about the chancellor. Now, it's not something that happened on a whim, granted, but if he were to want to get rid of Angela Merkel, there are ways that he can do that. Now, in 1933, Paul von Hindenburg, that guy, was the president of Germany. Now, he was very ill, but he was advised to appoint Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. Now, at that time, there were a lot of people who advised against the idea. Say, no, that's not a good idea, because they saw Adolf Hitler rising from just being a simple corporal. He wasn't. He didn't have a status in Germany. So after World War I, I believe he became even better known because he was the head of the Labour Party. Well, at least they placed him there. He was very charismatic, very charming guy. Yes, Adolf Hitler, a very charismatic guy, very charming. He mesmerized people, women, children, men, old, young. His popularity has not been replicated as leader, has not been replicated in the world. So despite what you've heard of Adolf Hitler, he didn't start out as a monster, at least not according to history. He was very liked in Germany. Close to 90%, he had close to 90% of popularity in Germany. People love Adolf Hitler. So you see, the idea of looking at someone that's doing something for you that you like and think that person is great, But Adolf Hitler was doing something that we're currently looking at, and that's the reason we went back to Germany in order to take a look at the similarities between those two leaders. Because everything that today we're seeing that Donald Trump is doing, Adolf Hitler was doing. Adolf Hitler accused the media of fabrication. The word fake news wasn't en vogue. It's the modern term used by Donald Trump, embraced by Donald Trump, and propagated by everyone around him. Adolf Hitler accused the media of fabrication. Donald Trump accused the media of being fake news. So anything that's not flattering to Donald Trump, any piece of article, any news that's not flattering to him is fake news. Same thing with Adolf Hitler. Anyone who challenged him, he managed to get rid of you. Now, for those of you who may not grasp the concept, Adolf Hitler did not make a coup in Germany. Adolf Hitler was legitimately appointed Chancellor of Germany, just like Angela Merkel was, well, now they elect the Chancellor. But the president still has the ultimate power to get rid of the Chancellor in extreme cases, of course. So Adolf Hitler did not seize power in Germany, contrary to what it seems like when the story about Adolf Hitler is being told, as if Adolf Hitler seized power and then he became the dictator. No, Adolf Hitler was legitimately appointed Chancellor of Germany. Contrary to even Donald Trump, who is just destroying all the guardrail of our Constitution, Adolf Hitler abided by the Constitution of Germany. That's a major difference. So you can talk all you want about Adolf Hitler becoming a monster, which later on that's what he became. But at the very least, when he was appointed Chancellor of Germany, he went by the book, he went by the Constitution of Germany. Much less than we can say about Donald Trump. So when people just shrug off that there is no comparison, maybe they're right, there is no comparison, because at least Adolf Hitler started on the right foot. He was legitimately appointed, and he followed and accepted and went by the Constitution of Germany. Donald Trump doesn't do any of that. So you talk about someone who you do not want to compare to a monster. Yes, Donald Trump is not yet at the point that we can say he is as much as a monster as Adolf Hitler was, but his action clearly say is on the way. You heard Jerry Falwell a few months ago suggesting to have Donald Trump spend a little bit more time in his first term because of waste of time. Now, this is a leader that hundreds of thousands and thousands of people are following, and this is the kind of thing that's coming out of the mouth of that leader. You see why the Republican Party is in big trouble? Because no matter where you look, from the private sector, from the business sector, from the political sector, everyone that you look seems to have rationale that's even the devil would not advance. And Donald Trump has been floating the idea of really being there forever, keeping power. Now, those may sound to you like jokes that someone is saying because we have a constitution, but can we really can we really not worry that when we hear those things? Because so far the Republican legislators have made it clear that no matter what happened, they would not do anything about it. We've seen that for the past 2 years. They did not even pretend to exercise oversight. And now that the Democrats are doing that, they're even trying to prevent it from happening. So can we really feel safe that if indeed Donald Trump were to say, I don't want to give up power, that the Republican would do something about it? Yes, he's saying that in jokingly, but can we think that it may not happen? Do you know how Adolf Hitler became a dictator in Germany? Now, when we talk about Adolf Hitler becoming a dictator, everybody always think that, well, he seized power in Germany and that's how you become a dictator. But let me tell you that no, that's not the way it happened. Adolf Hitler had the backing of the Reichstag and the Reichsrat, which are equivalent to Congress and the Senate in the United States. So no, Adolf Hitler did not do anything outside the Constitution of Germany. He did everything by the book, as I just mentioned. So when we see the kind of thing that Republican legislators are doing, while they may look like, oh, they will never go that route. Of course they would, because we've seen them the past couple of years. And even when they lost the lower chamber, Congress, they're still working to undermine the Democrats who are trying at the very least to exercise some form of oversight. So can we really trust the Republican would not help Donald Trump becoming a dictator? Can you really bet on that? Germany fell in the hands of Adolf Hitler not by accident. Reichstag and Reichsrat, which never really emphasized when the history of Germany is being counted in terms of when Adolf Hitler is in focus. People are talking about Adolf Hitler, they always focus on the Adolf Hitler being a monster, Adolf Hitler causing World War II, but the story behind how that happened is lost. The very people, the very structure that the Constitution of Germany put in place to prevent that from happening failed. Reichstag and Reichsrat, all the members voted to make Adolf Hitler what Adolf Hitler was. So no, it did not happen. Adolf Hitler did not seize power in Germany. The Congress and the Senate in Germany, Reichstag and Reichsrat, made Adolf Hitler what Adolf Hitler became. They gave him the kind of power. There was the Enabling Act of 1933. That act, what it did is it gave the chancellorship plenary power. The chancellorship was led by Adolf Hitler then. And plenary power meaning that body of the government could do anything and had no one to account to. To put it in perspective for you, Adolf Hitler could have easily asked his people to go into a town and wipe out the town and not have to give any account as to why he would do something like that. That's what plenary power is. And that was given to Adolf Hitler by Congress and the Senate in 1933. So no, I don't have any kind of hope, any kind of I do not believe that Republican legislators in Washington today could stop Donald Trump from becoming a dictator. In fact, they are encouraging the behavior. If you notice that every time that there is something that clearly come and show that Donald Trump is the monster that he is, Republican jump to defend him. That's exactly what was happening in Germany in 1933. Adolf Hitler did not become the monster on his own. Adolf Hitler did not seize power in Germany. Adolf Hitler did not make a coup in Germany. Reichstag and Reichsrat, Congress and the Senate gave him the power, supported him, defended him, and made Adolf Hitler what he was, what he became later on. And we're seeing the same movie playing today with the Republican legislators in Washington. You think that's far-fetched? Germany had a constitution just like the United States. Germany had a democracy just like the United States. But Congress and the Senate, Reichstag and Reichsrat, they shred everything and gave all power to Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler did not seize power in Germany. He went through the proper channel. We cannot even say the same thing about Donald Trump here, because Donald Trump has been going against the Constitution of the United States. Adolf Hitler, at the very least, had the decency to abide by the Constitution of Germany. Donald Trump doesn't even do that here. So you think it's not possible that we could have in our hands here in the United States somebody worse than Adolf Hitler? You shrugging that off? Now he's joking with the very enemy who had impacted our government, who had interfered in our election. He's joking with that person as if, oh, that was great, let's do it again. You cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give up, who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. The Mueller report was generated after a 2 years investigation into the meddling of the United States of America number one enemy, Russia, in the 2016 presidential election. Now that report provides us a window into not only what Russia, our enemy, has done to our country, but also, more importantly, the fact that our enemy had a willing participant. The very individual whose job will be to protect the nation willingly participated in soliciting and accepting help from our enemy in order to win an election. That there is no amount of rationale to justify that action. As such, we will begin the reading of the Mueller report. But first,
the order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination.
Carter Page contact with Deputy Prime Minister Arkady Dvorkovich. Hopefully I say that right. As I promised, I will be very good at reading Russian by the time I'm done with the reading of the Mueller report. Carter Page contact with Deputy Prime Minister Arkady Dvorkovich. See? I'm already that good. In December of 2016, more than 2 months after he was removed from the Trump campaign, former campaign foreign policy advisor Carter Page again visited Moscow in an attempt to pursue business opportunity. The next 4 sentences have been redacted grand jury. According to Konstantin Kilimnik, Paul Manafort's associate, Page also gave some individuals in Russia the impression that he had maintained his connection to President-elect Trump. In a December 8, 2016 email intended for Manafort, Kilimnik wrote, quote, "Carter Page is in Moscow today. Sending messages, he is authorized to talk to Russia on behalf of DT, meaning Donald Trump, on a range of issues of mutual interest, including Ukraine," end of quote. On December 9, 2016, Page went to dinner with Nest employees Shlomo Weber and Andrei Krikovic. Weber had contacted Dvorkovich to let him know that Page was in town and to invite him to stop by the dinner if he wished to do so. And Dvorkovich came to the restaurant for a few minutes to meet with Page. Dvorkovich congratulated Page on Trump's election and expressed interest in starting a dialogue between the United States and Russia. Dvorkovich asked Page if he could facilitate connecting Dvorkovich with individuals involved in the transition to begin a discussion of future cooperation. The remaining part of this paragraph has been redacted grand jury. Contact with and through Michael T. Flynn. Incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was the transition team's primary conduit for communication with the Russian ambassador and dealt with Russia on 2 sensitive matters during the transition period: a United Nations Security Council vote and the Russian government's reaction to the United States imposition of sanctions for Russian interference in the 2016 election. Despite Kushner's conclusion that Kislyak did not wield influence inside the Russian government, the transition team turned to Flynn's relationship with Kislyak on both issues. As to the sanction, Flynn spoke by phone to Katie McFarland, his incoming deputy, to prepare for his call to Kislyak. McFarland was with the president-elect and other senior members of the transition team at Mar-a-Lago at the time. Although the transition official at Mar-a-Lago had some concern about possible Russian reaction to the sanction, the investigation did not identify evidence that the president-elect asked Flynn to make any request to Kislyak. Flynn asked Kislyak not to escalate the situation in response to U.S. sanctions imposed on December 29, 2016. And Kislyak later reported to Flynn that Russia acceded to that request. United Nations vote on Israeli settlement. On December 21, 2016, Egypt submitted a resolution to the United Nations Security Council calling on Israel to cease settlement activities in Palestinian territory. The Security Council, which includes Russia, was scheduled to vote on the resolution the following day. There was speculation in the media that the Obama administration would not oppose the resolution. According to Flynn, the transition team regarded the vote as a significant issue and wanted to support Israel by opposing the resolution. On December 22, 2016, multiple members of the transition team, as well as President-elect Trump, communicated with foreign government officials to determine their views on the resolution and to rally support to delay the vote or defeat the resolution. Kushner led the effort for the transition team. Flynn was responsible for the Russian government. Minutes after an early morning phone call with Kushner on December 22nd, Flynn called Kislyak. According to Flynn, he informed Kislyak about the vote and the transition team opposition to the resolution, and requested that Russia vote against or delay the resolution. Later that day, President-elect Trump spoke with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi about the vote. Ultimately, Egypt postponed the vote. On December 23, 2016, Malaysia, New Zealand, Senegal, and Venezuela resubmitted that resolution. Throughout the day, members of the transition team continued to talk with foreign leaders about the resolution, with Flynn continuing to lead the outreach with the Russian government through Kislyak. When Flynn again spoke with Kislyak, Kislyak informed Flynn that if the resolution came to a vote, Russia would not vote against it. The resolution later passed 14-0 with the United States abstaining. U.S. sanction against Russia. Flynn was also the transition team member who spoke with the Russian government when the Obama administration imposed sanctions and other measures against Russia in response to Russia's interference in 2016 presidential election. On December 28, 2016, then President Obama signed Executive Order 13757, which took effect at 12:01 a.m. the following day, and imposed sanctions on 9 Russian individuals and entities. On December 29, 2016, the Obama administration also expelled 35 Russian government officials and closed 2 Russian government-owned compounds in the United States. During the rollout of the sanction, President-elect Trump and multiple transition team senior officials, including McFarland, Steve Bannon, and Reince Priebus, were staying at the Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach, Florida. Flynn was on vacation in the Dominican Republic, but was in daily contact with McFarland. The transition team and President-elect Trump were concerned that this sanction would harm the United States' relationship with Russia. Although the detail and timing of sanctions were unknown on December 28, 2016, the media began reporting that retaliatory measures from the Obama administration against Russia were forthcoming. When asked about imposing sanctions on Russia for its alleged interference in the 2016 presidential election, President-elect Trump told the media, quote, "I think we ought to get on with our lives," end of quote. Russia initiated the outreach to the transition team. On the evening of December 28, 2016, Kislyak texted Flynn, "Can you, quote, can you kindly call me back at your convenience?" End of quote. Flynn did not respond to the text message that evening. Someone from the Russian embassy called Flynn the next morning at 10:30 a.m., but they did not talk. The sanctions were announced publicly on December 29, 2016. At 1:53 p.m. that day, McFarland began exchanging email with multiple transition team members and advisors about the impact the sanction would have on the incoming administration. At 2:07 p.m., a transition team member texted Flynn a link to a New York Times article about the sanction. At 2:29 p.m., McFarland called Flynn, but they did not talk. Shortly thereafter, McFarland and Bannon discussed the sanction. According to McFarland, Bannon remarked that the sanction would hurt their ability to have good relations with Russia, and that Russian escalation would make things more difficult. McFarland believed she told Bannon that Flynn was scheduled to talk to Kislyak later that night. McFarland also believed she may have discussed the sanction with Priebus and likewise told him that Flynn was scheduled to talk to Kislyak that night. At 3:14 p.m., Flynn texted a transition team member who was assisting McFarland, quote, "Time for a call, question mark, question mark, question mark," end of quote. The transition team member responded that McFarland was on the phone with Tom Bossert, a transition team senior official, to which Flynn responded, quote, "Tit for tat with Russia, not good. Russian embo reaching out to me today," end of quote. Flynn recalled that he chose not to communicate with Kislyak about the sanction until he had heard from the team at Mar-a-Lago. He first spoke with Michael Leden, a transition team member who advised on foreign policy and national security matters, for 20 minutes. Flynn then spoke with McFarland for almost 20 minutes to discuss what, if anything, to communicate to Kislyak about the sanction. On that call, McFarland and Flynn discussed the sanction, including their potential impact on the incoming administration foreign policy goals. McFarland and Flynn also discussed that transition team members in Mar-a-Lago did not want Russia to escalate the situation. They both understood that Flynn would relay a message to Kislyak in hopes of making sure the situation would not get out of hand. Immediately after speaking with McFarland, Flynn called and spoke with Kislyak. Flynn discussed multiple topics with Kislyak, including the sanction, scheduling a video teleconference between President-elect Trump and Putin, an upcoming terrorism conference, and Russia's views about the Middle East. With respect to the sanction, Flynn requested that Russia not escalate the situation, not get into a, quote, tit for tat, end of quote, and only respond to the sanction in a reciprocal manner. Multiple transition team members were aware that Flynn was speaking with Kislyak that day. In addition to her conversation with Bannon and Reince Priebus, at 4:43 p.m., McFarland sent an email to transition team members about the sanction, informing the group that, quote, Jen Flynn is talking to Russian ambassador this evening, end of quote. Less than an hour later, McFarland briefed President-elect Trump, Bannon, Priebus, Sean Spicer, and other transition team members were present. During the briefing, President-elect Trump asked McFarland if the Russian did, quote, it, end of quote, meaning the intrusion intended to influence the presidential election. McFarland said yes, and President-elect Trump expressed doubt that it was the Russian. McFarland also discussed potential Russian responses to the sanction and said Russia's response would be an indicator of what the Russian wanted going forward. President-elect Trump opined that the sanction provided him with leverage to use with the Russians. McFarland recalled that at the end of the meeting, someone may have mentioned to President-elect Trump that Flynn was speaking to the Russian ambassador that evening. After the briefing, Flynn and McFarland spoke over the phone. Flynn reported on the substance of his call with Kislyak, including the discussions of the sanction. According to McFarland, Flynn mentioned that the Russian response to the sanction was not going to be escalatory because they wanted a good relationship with the incoming administration. McFarland also gave Flynn a summary of a recent briefing with President-elect. The next day, December 30th, 2016, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov remarked that Russia would respond in kind to the sanction. Putin superseded that comment 2 hours later, releasing a statement that Russia would not take retaliatory measures in response to the sanction at that time. Hours later, President Trump tweeted, quote, "Great move on delay by V. Putin," end of quote. Shortly thereafter, Flynn sent a text message to McFarland summarizing his call with Kislyak from the day before, which she emailed to Kushner, Bannon, Priebus, and other transition team members. The text message and email did not include sanction as one of the topics discussed with Kislyak. Flynn told the office that he did not document his discussion of sanction because it could be perceived as getting in the way of the Obama administration foreign policy. On December 31st, 2016, Kislyak called Flynn and told him the request had been received at the highest level and that Russia had chosen not to retaliate to the sanction in response to the request. 2 hours later, Flynn spoke with McFarland and relayed his conversation with Kislyak. According to McFarland, Flynn remarked that the Russian wanted a better relationship and that the relationship was back on track. Flynn also told McFarland that he believed his phone call had made a difference. McFarland recalled congratulating Flynn in response. Flynn spoke with other transition team members that day, but does not recall whether they discussed the sanction. Flynn recalled discussing the sanction with Bannon the next day, and that Bannon appeared to know about Flynn's conversation with Kislyak. Bannon, for his part, recalled meeting with Flynn that day, but said that he did not remember discussing sanction with him. Additional information about Flynn's sanction-related discussion with Kislyak and the handling of those discussions by the transition team and the Trump administration is provided in Volume 2 of this report. We just can't wait, can we? In sum, the investigation established multiple links between Trump campaign officials and individuals tied to the Russian government. Those links included Russian offers of assistance to the campaign. In some instances, the campaign was receptive to the offer, while in other instances, the campaign official shied away. Ultimately, the investigation did not establish that the campaign coordinated or conspired with the Russian government in its election interference activities. I hope this presentation was of some use to you. If not, you already know what to do. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion. Let us know how we can make it better. As I mentioned before, and I will continue to mention it, this program will not go anywhere, so you might as well help make it better. If you should have a particular topic you would like us to talk about, send it to us. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and hope to see you again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. when we continue our discussion of making the union more perfect. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.